Mawlana Allah قصد Sh.Muhammad الرحمن طريقتنا صحبه والخير في الجميع بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما يقاش نفسه الله صدق الله العظيم kim Allah Azze ve Celle nefsinin hassizliğinden kurtulan adam o kurtulmuş, hayra nail olmuş diyor.
Allah Almighty describes the one who releases himself and gets rid of the evil of his and the malice of his ego is the one who has obtained salvation.
Felaha gelmiş.
It is the one who has obtained safety.
O her şeyde nefes insanı yanıltır.
The ego is the one who always fools and cheats you.
İyiliğini istemez.
The ego never wants goodness for you.
Halbuki kendisine de iyi olur ama
but if the ego would only listen, it would also be getting goodness for itself.
Nefes dünyanın işlerine alakadar olur.
But the ego prefers and is inclined towards worldly affairs.
Ahiret işlerine o kadar umuru olmaz.
It neglects and is not interested into things of the hereafter.
Çünkü nefeste küfür var, iman yok. Onu nefsini imana davet edeceksin.
The ego does not have faith, and it is your duty to make your ego become a believer and invite him to faith.
Nefes iman olunca o da rahat eder. Sen de
Once the ego has faith, then your ego will find peace, and so will you.
rahat eder ama gene de ne kadar imanda olsa gene insanı fırsatını bulursa hemen ters çevirir.
But no matter how much progress you may make and how much faith you instill into your ego will always look for the slightest chance to spoil you.
Onun için nefsin istemediği şeyleri yapacaksın.
Therefore, you need to do the exact opposite of what your ego desires.
Nefis pintili, cimriliği sever.
The ego is greedy, for example.
Nefsin o cimrilikten kurtulan insan Allah'ın sevdiği kullar arasına girer.
And those who are successful in getting rid of the greed and stinginess of the ego are the ones who have obtained Allah Almighty's salvation.
Çünkü cimrilik Allah'ın sevmediği bir sıfattır.
Greed is a characteristic, it's a vice Allah Almighty detests.
Cömertlik Allah'ın sevdiği sıfattır.
Whereas generosity is a virtue Allah Almighty loves.
Bütün en güzel sıfatlar Allah Azze ve Celle'nindir.
Allah Almighty is the possessor of the best of all qualities.
Arasında işte cömert olan Allah Azze ve Celle.
And He is the one who is generous. Generosity is one of the characteristics of Allah Almighty.
Peygamberler, bütün peygamberler dünyaya malına hiç bakmaz.
All prophets and messengers of Allah Almighty were never interested in worldly affairs or worldly belongings.
Kimseden de bir şey istemezdi.
And they never asked anyone for anything.
Kimsenin vereceği şeye ihtiyacı yok. Allah
And they did not depend on what people gave to them.
Azze ve Celle'den doğrudan isterdi.
They only asked Allah Almighty and requested from Allah Almighty directly.
Ondan isteyen kimseye minneti olmaz.
And the one who requests from Allah Almighty directly will never owe to anyone else.
Kimseden beklentisi olmaz.
And the one who requests and receives from Allah Almighty directly is never in the expectation of others.
Allah Azze ve Celle rızası için yapılır.
And then, when you have obtained this state of requesting from Allah Almighty directly, then you are in a state where you do not expect from others, and all you do for the sake of Allah Almighty.
O yapılan işler hayırdır.
And then, if you act based on this, what you do is goodness.
Ve dünya menfaati için, dünya için yapılan faydasız, lüzumsuz işler.
What you do for the sake of this world, what you do for worldly profit, are useless things with no value.
Onun için nefsinin tintiliğine, cimriliğine sevme. Onun sevilecek bir tarafı yok.
So therefore, do not incline towards your ego, and do not incline towards your ego's greed and stinginess. There's no value in loving that bad vice of your ego.
Cömertlik o güzel sıfattır.
Strive for generosity. Generosity is a good characteristic.
Allah Azze ve Celle'nin sıfatı, Peygamber Efendimiz sıfatları.
Being generous is the quality of Allah Almighty, and being generous is how the prophets and the messengers of Allah Almighty used to be.
O sıfatlara bürünün, bazı sıfatlar var.
Try to obtain and try to strive for the qualities of Allah Almighty.
Allah Azze ve Celle herkes için vermiş, onu yapsın diye. Bazı sıfatları var, kendine mahsus olan sıfatlar.
There are qualities, divine qualities which we may strive for, and there are divine qualities which Allah Almighty has reserved for Himself only.
Var. Herkese verilecek olan sıfatlar da var.
And thus there are qualities and characteristics, however, we should be striving for.
Gani olan Allah, cömert olan Allah, o sıfatlar makbuldur.
So Allah Almighty, He is the generous one, and generosity is a characteristic and the quality and the virtue we can also and we should be striving for.
Kibirli, mütekebbir de Allah'a mahsustur. O sana mahsus değil.
And Allah Almighty, He is the pride, the great one, and greatness and pride belongs to Allah Almighty only. This is not something we should ever claim for ourselves.
Mütekebbir, kibirli olan ancak Allah Azze ve Celle olur.
Greatness and pride belongs to Allah Almighty, and He is the only great one and the only one who possesses pride, and it is not something we may strive for or acquire.
En büyük Allah Azze ve Celle'dir.
Allah Almighty, He is the great one.
O sıfatlar, dediğimiz gibi bazı sıfatlar, onlara benzemek bizim için iyidir, güzel.
However, there are also characteristics and qualities, divine qualities, which we can strive for.
Güzeldir. Bazı sıfatlar da yasaktır.
And so there are certain qualities which are permissible to imitate. However, there are also qualities which only belong to Allah Almighty and which are forbidden to us.
O yasak olanlardan değil de güzel sıfatlardan, Allah'ın sıfatına müsaade ettiği sıfatlara bürünmek, ona benzemek senin dereceni yükseltir, faziletini yükseltir.
So we should look for of acquiring the qualities of Allah Almighty which He has permitted to us to acquire, and should strive for those good qualities.
Allah o sıfatlarından da bize giydirsin inşallah.
And we are asking Allah Almighty to cover us with those good qualities of Him.
Güzel sıfatlarından. Ve minallah tevfik. El-Fatiha.